Hey everybody, Tom Sega from Duluth Pack, and we're back with another episode of the Leader of the Pack. Really exciting day today for me because I'm interviewing a gentleman who I've known most of his life, who's had an extremely special day today, and we'll get into that a little bit. But before I even give you who this individual is, I just want to read you a few things that I know about him and that has gotten him to this point of his career and all the hard work that goes into this. So, this is a professional hockey player. It's Neal Pionk, Winnipeg Jets star. And so he started hockey at Hermantown Youth Hockey. Most of the seasons that I watched him play, he wore the C on his jersey, and rightfully so. Fast forward to 2011 through 13, he was as a sophomore starting defenseman on one of the stellar programs in the state of Minnesota, very well known. And as a sophomore starting defenseman, played in the state championship game his sophomore year. 2012 and 13, junior year, leader of the team on defense, played in the state championship, named to the all-tournament team. That doesn't come lightly in the state of Minnesota. And then leaves, and I remember standing directly next to his parents when he finishes the championship game, and that day takes his mom and dad's car down to Sioux City, Iowa to go play in the United States Hockey League for the Sioux City Musketeers. Directly, your mom was pretty sad, Neal. 2014, he represented the USA at the Junior A Challenge tournament, and he's named to the all-tournament team and wins a gold medal. Remember that one very clearly. 2014 through 15 was his second year with the Sioux City Musketeers. He's named captain of the team. If I recall, the youngest captain they had ever had in the history of that team. I may be embellishing, but I don't believe so. He's named first all-star team and named defenseman of the year in the United States Hockey League. Then he enters Division I hockey 2015-16 with our UMD, University of Minnesota Duluth Bulldogs, plays in the NCHC, and plays 2 years in Division I hockey. His 2017 season in NCAA, he makes the all-tournament team, NCAA all-tournament team, and after 2 seasons as a Bulldog, enters the pro ranks as a free agent with the New York Rangers. Pretty tough city to go to as your first town as a professional hockey player. Plays 48 games in the AHL, American Hockey League, with the Hartford Wolfpack. Get calls up to the NHL the same year, and ends up playing 2 years with the New York Rangers and playing in Madison Square Garden. How cool is that for your first gig as a pro hockey player? He's named and played for the U.S. national team and wins a bronze medal after the season in 2017. In 2019, he's traded to the Winnipeg Jets on a 2-year contract. And today, we're smiling at each other. I've known this guy a long time. I'm so proud of you, Neal. He signs a 4-year extension contract with the Winnipeg Jets worth $23.5 million or $5.875 million per year. Neal, welcome. You've earned every last penny of it. Couldn't be more proud of you.
Thanks for having me, Tom.
Well, gosh, I'll tell you what. This is really exciting for a hockey fan. I've literally seen Neal, and we talk about the glory part of it right there. You've worked hard for it. That's the business end of it. Let's talk about your history in hockey. We have so many hockey fans that listen to this podcast, so many hockey fans that are fans of our company in this area, and you, to be honest. So many of us have followed you. I'm guessing, as I prep for this podcast, I'm thinking back and taking notes, and I'm thinking, I wonder how many games I've personally watched Neal play. Because now I'm a Winnipeg fan. Come on, right? I'm a junkie. I'm watching you all the time, and I guess I've probably seen you play 300 hockey games live. Now, some of these are on TV live,
Right.
but definitely with your father and traveling all over. You played with my son for many youth hockey and through high school, and to watch you play, that's just really cool. And today, what we really want to learn is your story, because there's a lot more than just all the glitz and glamour that goes into being a professional athlete. I want you to teach us all a little bit about behind the scenes. But before we get there, let's talk a little bit about your story. Where were you born?
I was born in Omaha, Nebraska.
No. How in the heck does a professional hockey player come from there? Tell us
Uh,
all.
yeah, so my dad is from Proctor, Minnesota originally, and he got into coaching, and he coached youth hockey, worked his way up. Got a job down in Omaha coaching the Omaha Lancers in the USHL. He was the assistant coach there. I think he started there in either 92 or 93, roughly, kind of guessing, maybe 91. And he met my mom there, and they ended up getting married in the fall of 94, and I was born in the summer of 95 down in Omaha, and so were two of my other brothers. And then we were there until 1999, and then moved to Waterloo, Iowa for 2 years, and then moved to Hermantown in the year of 2000.
And that's when is that when you started skating, or were you skating already before you even came to Hermantown?
I think I first skated in Waterloo, Iowa,
Okay.
a few times, but not like anything organized. Just
Just
put
with
on,
Dad at
yeah,
practice
with Dad,
as
push
he
the chair around.
sure
Yeah,
with the big round helmet. We
big round Jofa helmet. Yeah,
we got to talk about
that
that
ran in the
actually.
family.
You know
Yeah.
what? I think that needs to go to the Hockey Hall of Fame. The Pionk.
Yeah,
That's
it should be enshrined.
it should. I mean, every one of you wore that helmet. I remember
Every
that.
one of us.
And that thing, if you can just imagine, you first of all, your head wasn't going to get hurt in that helmet
Oh no.
because it was like 4 times the size of your head. So there's a lot of padding in that thing.
I'd say imagine a bowling ball with a hole in it, and then put it on top of your head. Like, that's what it looked like.
It
It was
did.
the Jofa bubble, we kind of called it and joked about it. But yeah, all of us wore it for at least
Oh
a
my
couple
gosh! I'll tell you what, your younger brothers, those poor guys,
Yeah.
after you had it on, huh?
years. Seriously.
And so you started skating at a very young age. Obviously, you're ingrained in hockey. Your dad's in hockey, but also we all noticed, us hockey dads, you as a pretty young age, you somehow there was something different about you, and it was the student of the hockey game, even at a young age. And watching you play all these years and watching you play today, you see the ice so well. You understand what everyone's doing, everybody's roles, what, why, how, and where. And you, as a pro, of course, I guess we expect that out of you, right? But you were doing this as a squirt and peewee. How did some of that start? Can you, I mean, do you think back to that, because you've been called a student of the game by a lot of people. You've been interviewed a lot. Where did some of that come from? Where do you feel it came from?
Well, for sure was influenced by my parents. Certainly my dad too. But my mom has one of the best stories. She'd always tell me I was literally obsessed with hockey, like even before I can even remember. And the best story that she has is I went to like a half year preschool down in Waterloo, Iowa, and we started counting, learning the numbers 1 through 10, or 1 through 20, whatever it was. And the teacher went up to her and said, "Yeah, he counts really well, but he keeps skipping numbers." And my mom said, "What are you talking about?" So she like wrote down the numbers that I knew, and my mom looked at it. She brought it to my dad, and my dad looks at it. He goes, "That's the roster of our hockey team." I didn't know any other numbers. Like I would skip, whatever it was. I would say 1, 2, 6, 7, 9, 12, 15, 17, 20. And the teacher would look at me like, "What are you doing?" And then my mom and dad connected the dots. They said, "That's literally the roster of the hockey team. That's all he knows."
Holy moly. So
that's-
at that point, you're paying attention, and they recognize you're
Yeah.
paying attention to what's happening in Dad's career.
And that was at like 4 or 5 years old. So like that's kind of where I don't even remember doing that, obviously, but that's kind of where it started. And yeah, and then even growing up, I remember even not only hockey but watching sports, ESPN every night. But that's kind of where it started, where it got ingrained.
So you start really becoming a student of the game. But I remember also, as I was coaching youth baseball, you were a heck of a baseball player, and you seem to do the same with that sport as well. And I know that at some point there's got to be, okay, I need to go one direction or another, but I want to get your feelings on one subject, because there's you're a professional athlete in one sport. What are your thoughts on specifically youth and high school playing multiple sports?
I almost think it should be mandatory, especially for kids under the age of 16. Like you have to do multiple sports, and I think the biggest reason it's not even physical or skill wise or anything like that. It's more mental. Like I've seen, and it's sad to say, but I've seen 12, 13-year-olds get burnt out of one sport, especially hockey. Like I've seen growing up and playing with some of the best players that were 12 and 13 years old in the country at the time, and by the time they turn 15, they can't stand the sport. They hate it. And why is that? Because they literally didn't play anything else. So they're burnt out mentally.
You did.
I played baseball I actually played baseball through college in an amateur baseball league until I was 21. And that was encouraged by Scott Sandlin. He said, go play baseball. Like, I want you to play baseball. So
You know what? I remember that now.
I played in like a wood bat amateur league when I was 21. And then when I turned pro, I was like, okay, I better not roll an ankle rounding second. So
I think you'd be frowned on.
yeah. So I try to play golf now, but that's not going very well. So
Well, you know what?
We all try.
They make more golf balls,
yeah,
right?
we all try.
You don't have to swing that hard.
Well, swing hard just in case you hit it.
Well, there's a good, your eye-hand coordination,
Yeah.
playing baseball and playing
yeah.
hockey should be pretty good. But so you're a big advocate of specifically the youth is play multiple sports. It's good for number one, burnout.
Right.
Number two, because you can go out there and you can read articles on all
yeah.
over the place on people saying, no, you know what, if you're going to be a good hockey player, you really need to be an expert at this one and stuff.
No, I just think it's good mentally, but yeah, and then physically too. Like you pick up different motions, you use different muscles playing different sports. Like obviously you need coordination in baseball by hitting a baseball. Well, that can translate to hockey too. If you're knocking down a puck in the middle of the ice, that probably came from baseball a long time ago, and vice versa too. Like hockey probably gives a lot of things to baseball. So, and not only that, but I played football too. I played tackle football for probably 2 or 3 years down in West Duluth, and I loved football. That was a lot of fun. I wish I could have played it more, but can't do it all.
Yep, exactly. So you're a big advocate of playing multiple sports. In fact, I will hear many times as I watch your games as a pro, and you do have phenomenal eye-hand coordination, and you'll knock a puck down or you'll glove a puck and put it down. You'll catch it just like with a mitt. And as a right-hander, you just let go with that left hand on the stick, grab that thing. And I've seen it many times, and the announcers will actually bring up, because they do a lot of history on you guys, and they'll bring up your baseball prowess in some of the moves you make, whether it's knocking a puck down with your stick or whether it's grabbing a puck up high to keep it on the in the offensive zone on the blue line, putting it down, and then also watching as you're doing that. So you grab the puck, put it down, you're watching so that you know where to go with it and whatnot.
Certainly, yeah. I mean, that all comes from baseball, and like I said, that it translates. You might not think it does, but it definitely does. Because I've known a couple hockey players, like, you throw a football at them, they're not catching it because, like, that's all they know is hockey. That's all they've done their entire lives. So I think it's important to get that athletic base.
I can tell you I've always been an advocate of it, and I love hearing it come from you. And I hope that if there's any youth sports parents listening today, that they will listen to somebody like you, not listen to me, but listen to you and say, this was important in my career to make me better, so I don't burn out. So when I focus on the sport that I knew that was my real love, that I could focus 100% on it, and I wasn't burned out, and I never went through that burnout.
For sure. I mean, I think, and the biggest thing too is, like, don't just make your kid play another sport. Like, we weren't allowed to touch our skates from June to July. June, July, we literally were not allowed to touch our skates.
And you don't skate every day after the season's over either, do
No,
you?
I take 6 weeks off. I take 6 weeks off of skating and 2 to 3 weeks off of working out. And then even when I do start skating, it's like twice a week for 2 to 3 weeks, and then after that I start picking it up to 4 or 5 times a week. But as kids, like, we were only allowed to play baseball in June and July, and then August we mixed, obviously, both. Like, my dad had his hockey camps in August, so we skated a little bit in August, and then of course September came around and it's full-blown hockey season. But like, take time off. Like, don't just mix the sports, but literally don't touch your skates for a while and see how it goes. And it turned out pretty well for me.
I think it turned out pretty well for you, and I think that people should heed that advice because, I always said that my next coaching gig for youth sports would be in the orphanage because there's no parents involved. And parents, you need to heed some of this from somebody who's made it to the highest of levels, and the importance of, let your kids have fun. Make them take time off from it, and it may not be playing baseball. It could be going to the family cabin.
Exactly.
Fishing,
doing
something different to take that break so you don't burn out.
Don't
I think
skate 12 months a year.
Oh, God bless.
I don't even do it.
And there you are, somebody
Yeah.
at the highest
I'm a pro.
levels, and that's I think that's great information that people need to heed from you.
Right.
So let's take a step back. So the state tournament's over your junior year, and you're one of those guys who doesn't go and play his senior year. I fully understand, and I was a full advocate of you doing what you did. You went and played in the United States Hockey League instead of coming back. I'm sure there's people who, oh, I think it's a terrible decision, and people who are going to say, and I think it's very individual.
For sure, it's individual based, and again, it's not a guarantee to anything. Like if you stay in high school, it's not a guarantee you're going to have success. If you leave early, it's not a guarantee you're going to have success. At the end of the day, you have to ask yourself, and this is kind of what I did, and we had tons of conversations about it as a family. But at the end of the day, you have to ask yourself if you want to play hockey or do you want to be a hockey player. I mean, there's a big difference. Like you can play hockey and have your senior year of high school, and great, and it could still work out for you, no doubt, and it has worked out for a lot of guys. For me, I wanted to challenge myself and go to the next level and play against the best players that I possibly could.
Neal, I think you just hit it right there, and that was challenge myself. And I've said this before, behind closed doors with people, when you see these elite hockey players in the state of Minnesota, and some are like, hey, I just want to go back and play with my senior year, and I want to play with my buddies and do all of that. I think you would have been bored. I don't think you would have been challenged. I think you were that level, and I believe that's the decision that was made, is that you need to challenge yourself. And if you went back to high school, I don't believe you would have been challenged. You would have set all kinds of records. You'd have never come off the ice, all of those things. But would you have been challenged, and would it have made you the player you are today?
Yeah, it's easy for me to say now in the position that I am that I made the right decision, but again, it's not a guarantee to anything. Because I know some guys that stayed in high school their senior year and they're in the NHL now. So it's all personal, like you said earlier. And for me personally, it was the right decision to leave after my junior year.
Right.
And you go through it at every level. I went through it at every level. UMD asked me to come in after my first year of junior, and I said no. I wanted to go back, stayed a year, and then same thing when I got into college. They asked me to sign my sophomore year, and I decided to leave. I could have stayed and went back my junior year, but again, those decisions come at every level.
I'm assuming you're pretty welcome back at UMD now, and I think you just coached a camp there a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I have a real good relationship with the coaching staff down there, and they're great about it too. So I work out down there, skate down there, and then help out with the odd camp here and there.
Oh, that's awesome. Giving back. That's
absolutely.
That's pretty cool. So you had to make those tough decisions more than once. You made that tough decision leaving high school early. Then you were asked to leave the USHL early, decided to stay another year. So you have that family decision to make. I'm sure it's more than just Neal as a young man. Your parents, are very involved in your life. And then the ultimate decision, now we're getting to the pro ranks, is I'm finishing my sophomore year of college. I'm playing in literally the best league in Division I college hockey. This team's destined to do really good things, and I got some difficult decisions to make. Now, at that point, you're undrafted. You are a free agent, so you have a choice to go to anywhere you want. And you put up, some pretty stellar numbers those first 2 years of college. Your second year of college, some phenomenal numbers. You have a lot of teams looking at you. How do you whittle that down, Neal? How does that process go? Because we laymen, it's like, okay, here's a young guy, and he's got all these professional hockey teams that wants him. How does that process work?
It was a lengthy process. So I first had to decide if I wanted to turn pro or not. And that was obviously a conversation I had with both my parents, the college coaches down at UMD, and my now agent. And that probably took me a week to decide. I decided to turn pro, and then once I turned pro, it took me probably another 2 weeks to decide which team to sign with. We got the list of who was all interested, and then we kind of whittled down the list to interviews that we would do down in Chicago, where my agent is based out of, and then we did a few team visits, and ultimately decided on the Rangers out of college.
And a lot goes into that. Obviously, you're a right-handed shooting defenseman, and for people who don't really know the game real well, that's kind of gold right there, being a right-handed shooting defenseman. And there's probably some needs that teams had, and you had to weigh all these different factors.
Yeah, there was a lot that went into it, and again, my agent's been around the business for a while, so he knew the other GMs, the depth charts of other teams, and again, it took 2 weeks to sort it all out. Once we got done with the interviews, it took another, probably 3-4 days to actually decide on which team to sign with. So it was a lengthy process.
So you're at this point, what are you,
I was 20.
21?
At that point, I was 21. Yeah.
So you're 21 years old. Obviously you've moved around. You lived in Sioux City, but not a huge city.
Right.
You come back to Duluth, Minnesota, not a huge city, which Hermantown is a little bedroom community of 10,000 outside of there. What the hell were you thinking to go to New York City?
I asked myself that when I signed. No, it was yeah. I remember going through the process, and New York was one of the teams that we visited. Went out to New York City, and I think it was the second time I had been there in my life. The other time was for a hockey tournament, so I'd never really experienced the city. And I got out there, and it was just mayhem. Like Times Square, everything was jam packed, tight. It was just bonkers. Like,
By the way, Madison Square Garden's right there.
yeah. I didn't even really know. I knew what MSG was, but I didn't really know the magnitude of it even at that time. But yeah, like you get there and you get off the plane, and I mean, there's horns honking. It's just stuff I wasn't used to. Like a kid from Duluth, Minnesota. Like that's public transportation. Like we don't really have public transportation here. A little bit. We don't have a subway system like New York City does, and it was a big transition for me.
When you got out there, did you just park your car and pretty much just use public transport at that point?
Yeah, so like what we had to do is I got an apartment, and then you had to park your car in a parking garage, which was wildly expensive. And then because our practice facility in New York was almost an hour north of the city, so we'd have to drive there, but that's the only time we use the car. After that, like if we wanted to go to dinner or go to an event in New York City, we would take either an Uber or taxi, or I got to know the subway system. So yeah, you had to take some sort of public transportation, which was so foreign to me.
You learn quickly.
Learn quick, yeah. It's actually kind of crazy. The best way I learned, and somebody told me this, I didn't even know it was an option on my phone. They said pull out your phone, type in what restaurant you want to go to in New York City, and then on the very bottom where it says ride, walk, there's actually a transit button on the right. Hit the transit button and it'll show you what subway to take. I was like, are you serious? There's actually a transit button. So I hit it and I hit go, and then it shows you what station to go to, what train to get on, and then when to get off the train. It was just a wild concept to me.
So how many times you missed that stop the first, early on?
I had to hold hands with one of the older guys and make sure I wasn't lost out there. But even something simple as calling a taxi. Like I had never, even in college, we didn't have Uber in Duluth when I was in college.
Mm-hmm.
So calling a taxi in New York City was totally foreign to me. Like I'd be on a street corner trying to call a taxi, and then somebody told, no, go in the middle of the street. You have a better odds of getting picked up. And then on top of that, the lights on top of the taxi, I think, have to be on in order for them to pick you up. I had no idea.
So you're out there flagging down, hailing the wrong ones.
I'm out there waving at taxis, and I'm like, what the hell? These guys are driving right by me. And I didn't know why. And then a couple days later, I'm like, oh, the lights got to be on. So like I had no clue though.
They go by and they're like, rookie.
Yeah.
In many ways.
Oh,
right?
I was a total tourist. So yeah, it was a bit of a culture shock.
Oh, but I bet you grew up a little bit in a big hurry.
Grew up, yeah, exactly. Figured that out, and then figured the subway system out. Figured out where the nearest grocery store was. Figured out what restaurants I like, and honestly, I love it to this day. It took me a little bit, but I love it to this day.
You were saying before we started, the first 2 weeks, you just felt like you were totally like out of your element.
Yeah.
That, oh my goodness, what have I done?
Totally overwhelmed, like because I'm used to getting in my car, going to the grocery store, getting in my car, go to the gas station, get in my car, go to the rink. That's not that way in New York City. Like you have to. The nice part about it is that the nearest grocery store is only 5 blocks away. One of the best restaurants in the world is 6 blocks away. MSG is 8 blocks away. But as soon as you wrap that around your head, and I call it putting the horse blinders on,
Mm-hmm.
put your horse blinders on and just go to your destination. Don't get distracted. Go to your destination.
Stop being a tourist?
Yeah, stop being a tourist and don't look at the bright lights. Just go. And it helped me a lot. And then my roommate and I, Brett Howden, we actually had some fun. We got the electric scooters. So we started taking electric scooters around the city, and we would literally go into the grocery store with our electric scooters because we would see people in their bikes, and they would take bikes to the grocery stores. And he's from Winnipeg, and I'm from Duluth, so it's like it was obviously foreign to us to see a bike in the grocery store. But we would take our scooters, and then we would have our backpacks on our back and just throw the groceries in the backpack and then pay up front and then take the scooter back to the apartment. Like that's how we got around.
That's awesome.
It was kind of fun.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
Great way to learn the city, too.
Yeah, it was really fun.
So, first time you stepped on the ice at MSG for a game, when you skate out on the ice, not warm-ups, forget warm-ups, we're getting out there now. We're gonna play the game. Pretty cool.
Yeah, really cool.
I mean,
guess,
you're a rookie, so
yeah,
everything's gonna be really cool. But
right. I guess the first time it was actually a preseason game. We were playing the Islanders, and me being in Minnesota, obviously Cal Clutterbuck was a big Minnesota Wild player, and I was playing against him in the first preseason game. So it was like, almost starstruck right on the ice.
Sure.
Playing against him like on the Islanders, I'm on the Rangers, whatever. But it was kind of cool and kind of shocking.
That had to be
Yeah.
something else. Okay, how about shooting? And then we're going to get on to talk about a little bit about after your trade, your only trade, I guess. But the first time you shot a puck at the King.
It was right on the ice and about as slow as possible. I did not want to hit him in the head.
The King is Henrik Lundqvist.
Yeah, nor did I want to score on him. So
that's pretty funny.
Yeah.
You're just not going for it, huh?
Terrified. Yeah, I mean, he's the king. He's literally called the King of New York for a reason too. Like he was there forever, and he had a lot of success there, and obviously we all knew who he was as a kid, and then you step on the ice with him, and it was like, because he showed up in August because he had kids in school, and
Sure.
it was only rookies there. It was like me and 5 or 6 other rookies on the ice, like just skating before training camp, and he jumped on the ice with us, and it was like, oh boy, like
This is real.
yeah, here we go. Like the big boys are starting to come. So it was kind of crazy.
Holy cow, that'd be cool. So you were number 44 there, and folks, I do have to tell you that Neal carries, and that's the only commercial I'm going to do here. He carries a Duluth Pack leather duffel on the road. He actually called me. I'm laying in my bunk in my hunting camp and talking to my son on, hey, I got in trouble here on one of our road trips. I don't know if you were on the train or if you were on the plane, but you came in with a UMD Bulldogs duffel to carry with you and got in a little trouble.
Yeah, being a college kid, you took whatever you can get. And we had a UMD duffel bag, and I just brought it to New York City for the New York Rangers and carried it on my first road trip. And one of the guys pulled me aside and said, "Yeah, you can't carry that around anymore.
You're not in college hockey anymore.
You got to get a new duffel bag." So
he calls me, and we did some trade, or we did something, and I was making fun of Neal, and I said, hey, I want a signed jersey. Well, this guy he's a stand-up guy, and he does what he says he's going to do, and I get a call about 3-4 weeks later, something like this, a month later, from your mother, and she said, Tom, I have something for you from Neal. And I went down to her place of work, and I got a signed Neal Pionk jersey, number 44, New York Rangers. And Karen told me that, I asked her, I said, how cool was that to sit in the stands and wear one of his jerseys and stuff? She said, well, Scott and I don't have jerseys. I go, what? And she goes, no, we don't have jerseys yet. And she goes, and this is the first signed one from Neal. And I said, I can't accept that. I go, you have to take it. She goes, I'll be in so much trouble. I actually have it. Neal was gracious enough to say, yes, I could donate it to Hoops Brewery, which was on the podcast. Dave has shadowboxed it, had it up. Have you seen it there?
I have not seen it in there, no.
Well, I guess you and I are going to have to go for a beer and see
suppose,
that jersey.
Might as well.
And I promise when I come up and watch you play in Winnipeg, I won't wear that one.
Yeah, don't wear that one. You might get booed.
Yeah, I might get booed a little bit. So we'll have to get a new one. But you guys got really cool jerseys. Yeah. So you get traded then. You're 2 years there. And this is part of the business, just like today was part of the business for you. You get traded. And, let's talk quickly about that, because what we really want to get to is a long road trip. And instead of just hearing about all the glam of your business, we want to find what's the grind of your business, how great it is behind the scenes, right? So you get traded. Was that, first of all, did you know you were going to be traded, or you just get a phone call and it's like, hey, guess what? We've just traded you to Winnipeg for Jacob Trouba.
Yeah, I honestly had no idea. And I guess the best reference I can give is if anyone's ever seen the movie Moneyball. It was about the Oakland Athletics back in the 2000s, and it's a good pro sports movie anyways. They trade a couple guys, and the phone call is literally 30 seconds. It's like, hey, we traded you. Here's this number. Here's that number. Thanks for playing for us. And that was it.
Thank you for your service, sir.
Essentially, yeah.
Now get out.
Yeah, exactly. So they want to keep it short. They want to keep the emotion out of it, and I understand that. But yeah, it totally caught me off guard. Didn't know I was getting traded. Didn't expect to. I was playing golf in the cities, and at the time it had been one of the better rounds of my life. And so of course I'm going back to the apartment, riding cloud nine, just feeling really good about
So you're going to
myself.
make it into the double digits on that round?
Yeah, exactly. I broke 100, probably something like that. But no, I'm back in my apartment and just sitting there, like I said, riding cloud nine because I golfed really well, and all of a sudden the phone rings from the GM of the Rangers, and when the GM calls you, you're either in trouble or you got traded. So the phone rings. I'm thinking in my head like, I didn't do anything wrong, did I? And I answer the phone, and like I said, it was a 30-second phone call, and he said thank you, and then we moved on. And then literally as soon as the phone hung up, um, 10 seconds after that, Winnipeg's GM called me because they have to do a social media release, and they want you to find out first. And so then Winnipeg's GM calls me, and same thing. It was 30 seconds long. Glad to get you, glad to have you, stuff like that. And then I was a Winnipeg Jet. So it was just,
Holy cow.
It was kind of crazy.
How cool, though. What?
Yeah.
5.5 hours from here.
Yeah.
Without a snowstorm between here and there.
Snowstorm.
So other than pandemic, for fans of you, local people, myself. In fact, I was supposed right before the season ended in March a year ago.
Yeah.
I had been talking to your dad about coming up for a weekend where it was like I think it was a Friday night, Sunday morning or Sunday afternoon matinee, and then drive home late Sunday night with your dad.
Oh, yeah.
And then this whole season came to an end. I think he may have still come up and visited with you or something.
Yeah.
He still went, but now you're a Winnipeg Jet, completely different style town. Goes from really where you've talked about in New York City, it can be an unknown, to all of a sudden hockey is like holy cow in Winnipeg. Pretty cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. It's just a different market. So like the NHL is like the NFL here. Like the NHL is their religion. Like that's what they do 3-4 times a week. They watch Jets games or whatever it is, whatever Canadian team it is. And I hate to say this because I am a Minnesota Vikings fan, but what I compare it to is like playing in Green Bay in the NFL. Like it's a small town, kind of a colder town, but it is passionate. Like that's all they do, and they live and breathe Jets hockey. So it's pretty fun.
That's obvious if you've ever watched a game and you get into playoffs and it's the whiteout and with the everyone, just because of your jerseys there are a lot of the home ones, right, or white.
No, the home ones are blue.
Okay,
Yeah.
but they do a whiteout when you're home, so you're wearing the blue, you're wearing the darks, and they wear like white T-shirts and white shorts and all
That's
that
for the playoffs.
Yeah, for the playoffs. And the fans are ravenous.
Right.
So let's talk in a normal year. Okay, you're a Winnipeg Jet, and we have a West Coast swing. 4 games, West Coast, probably 8 days.
Usually a game every other day.
Tell us how this whole thing works. You fly out a day early.
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
So tell us, what's the life of that trip about? We want to know about getting ready for the trip, the travel, your film, your skates, the warm-ups, the games, the cool-downs, the post-game interviews, how does all this work? This is a production.
Yeah. So let's say we're doing LA, Anaheim, Vegas, San Jose. We'll play in Winnipeg, and then the game will get over, and then the next day we'll get up, have practice before the flight. The flight will be around 2:00. Then we'll fly to LA, and then that's probably a 4.5 hour flight. We'll land, 7, 8 o'clock.
All first class, every one of you guys,
Yep.
and
we have
and fancy food on the plane, and you just nothing but good, right?
good food on the plane. Yeah, good food on the plane, but it is still a 4-hour flight, so we have plenty of leg room. There's no complaining about that. But we'll land in LA 7, 8 o'clock, go get something to eat, and then the next day we'll wake up, breakfast, morning skate, and then go back to the hotel room for a nap. Go back to the rink, watch some video, and then play the LA Kings that night. And then, I'm making up kind of a mock road trip here, but since Anaheim is so close, we'll probably just stay in LA and then practice in LA the next day, and then probably transfer to the hotel in Anaheim after practice. We'll go right there after practice.
Because you're only talking about
it's not that far.
40 minutes.
Yeah, it's not that far, but you don't want to get caught in LA traffic.
Yeah.
So we want to make sure we're on time for the game. So we'll go stay the hotel in Anaheim, play the game in Anaheim. After that game's done, let's say we're going to Vegas next. We'll fly to Vegas that night. Get into Vegas at, the game gets done usually around 10:30, depending on how long the game goes. And then you'll have media you have to do, usually a quick workout you have to do, and then post-game meals usually on the plane. So we'll get out of the rink. Usually the bus is at 11:30. We're on the plane by 12:30, and then Vegas is only, probably only an hour flight.
Yep.
Land at 1:30. Wake up the next day, practice, back to the hotel.
Well, you guys don't go hang out on the strip all night?
Not at 1:30 in the morning.
Okay, well, it's just getting started down there.
Yeah. Practice the next day, and then it's funny because we call the days that we don't play off days, even though we're practicing. We call it an off day, so like that's kind of our off day. We'll practice for only 30, 40 minutes maybe, and then go back to the hotel. And usually, like if we're in,
Can I interject
yeah,
here?
go ahead.
Or a question. So when you're in Vegas and you got that 30, 40-minute practice, the coach is working on things that he sees that either you guys have had a deficit in, or hey, Vegas is going to be really good at this. We need to do some working on this, or special teams, or how does that go?
Honestly, I'd say it's less tactical, more about getting your legs moving.
Okay.
The tactical stuff comes in video.
All right.
And as a professional, you're expected to translate that without practicing.
Okay.
So we'll practice some tactical stuff on the ice during those practices, but for the most part, it's just about getting up and down the ice, and we call it getting the plane legs out of you. So like you got to get the jet leg out of you and make sure you sweat a little bit just to get moving that day, especially if it's a long flight. So again, that flight was only an hour, and then we'll practice, whatever, take a nap, do whatever you want in Vegas, and then go out to eat the night before the game, play Vegas, and then same thing, same routine. Game gets over at 10:30, on the bus by 11:30, on the plane by 12:30, and we're in San Jose by probably 2:30 a.m. Same routine: sleep, practice, game.
By the end of a 4-game road trip, you're exhausted.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you can't wait to get home.
Yeah.
You get home. Do you get a day off then, or all
Yeah, so
schedule dependent, or usually on a long road trip they'll find a day off?
Yeah.
When you a day off, actually a day off.
A true day off.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like, again, we'll continue with our mock road trip. Let's say we're playing in San Jose the last day of the road trip. If we play in the Pacific time zone, we'll usually stay the night. So like we'll play in San Jose, sleep in San Jose, and then the flight the next morning will be at like 10 o'clock Pacific time. We'll land in Winnipeg at like 2, 3 o'clock Central time.
So you won't actually fly that night. You'll be able to stay.
If we stay in the Pacific time zone.
Okay.
Just because we lose to it. If we were to fly home after the game at San Jose, we would get home at like 5 in the morning.
Right.
And I actually have a good story about that one too. It's like going back to the grind of the season. When I was in New York, we were on a Western road trip. We played Vegas at 7:30 Pacific time. The game got over around 11 Pacific time. We got on the bus about...
That's 2 o'clock on Eastern.
We got on the bus about 12:30. We got on the plane about 1. Well, let's say we got on the plane at like midnight. It's a 5-hour flight to New York, and we flew that night. So we fly to New York, 5-hour flight, and we landed literally at 7 in the morning. And it's an hour drive from the airport down to my apartment. So I got to my apartment at 8 in the morning, and I don't really sleep on the plane, kind of, but not really.
Come on, it's one of my questions here.
I'm not one of those guys that can just fall asleep right away. So maybe I got an hour on that flight, an hour of sleep, and then got to the apartment at 8 a.m. Obviously slept till probably 11 o'clock noon. And then we had a total day off that day, but we had to play the Islanders the day after that at home. So it's like we had a day off, but we literally got into our apartment at 8 a.m. that day off, and then had to lounge around all day and then play a game the day after that. So that was one of the toughest trips I've been on.
And you've been on the West Coast for days, so you're exhausted already, and now you don't even really get any good rest between.
And your body's on Pacific time zone still.
Sure.
So it's a tough transition, but you kind of find things along the way that help, whether it's some sort of treatment, recovery. The littlest things can help too. So.
Well, give us an idea of some of the things that you might do on something like that.
Well, we're spoiled. We have a massage therapist that travels with our team, so not so much as a younger guy, but the older guys they'll get a massage maybe on the day off, or they'll get some sort of treatment from the athletic trainers if we have bumps or bruises. There's little things like these compression pants that you can wear on the plane that help take a little bit of the jet lag out. Guys have specialty drinks as far as recovery drinks on the plane, stuff like that. So it's what I like to do if we have a long flight like that is the next day not sit on the couch, whether it's take the dogs to the dog park or go walk around somewhere, just do something for, because if I sit on the couch, I'll still feel terrible the day after that. So I try to get moving, and that seems to work okay for me.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So it's not all glitz and glam. There's a lot
Yeah.
of hard back end work
Yeah.
that goes into this. That it's very regimented. You had mentioned that a lot of this is choreographed really well. That to move 50 people around. Can you explain a little bit about that?
Yeah, so it's kind of crazy. Like if I take it for granted, but we have three equipment managers, uh, three athletic trainers, and a massage therapist, and then we have four coaches and two GMs and 23 players on the traveling roster. So it's rough. It's close to, I want to say it's about 40 traveling people, the traveling party, I should say. And like I said, after the game gets done at 10:30. We're on the bus by 11:15, and we're in the air by, 12. So it's literally an hour and a half after the game. After the last horn sounds, we're in the air. So it's pretty efficient.
Efficient and a lot of logistics
Yeah.
that goes into doing
We
it.
got it down to a T.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So it's you guys can you can do what you do as a professional hockey player
Yep.
and do it the best. So I was going to go into some questions here about sleeping on the plane because I'm people hate me because I sleep like a baby and I've
Oh.
traveled my whole career.
Totally jealous.
Neal, I'm usually sleeping before we're off the ground.
Totally jealous.
And to give you the worst one, and I don't recommend this, from Minneapolis to Tokyo,
Oh, wow.
13 hours. I fell asleep before we were off the ground. I woke up when we touched down in
Wow.
Tokyo. No, not a good idea because your feet swell.
Oh, I suppose,
terribly.
yeah,
I
you
couldn't
gotta
put my shoes on
you
for
gotta
like
walk
6
around.
hours.
Yeah.
And they made fun of me in immigration because
Yeah.
I couldn't put my shoes on. They
Yep.
go, "Oh, slept too long, huh?"
Yeah.
So,
they've seen it before.
But yeah, practice that.
Yep.
It can definitely help you.
Yep.
So well, first of all, last year we're in a pandemic, and they change everything. So you never left Canada. You played in what was with the Canadian division or whatever
Yep.
they called it. I forget what they actually called it. Tell me the good, the bad, and the ugly. Tell us the good, the bad, and the ugly about, playing the same teams over and over and over.
The good is that you get to know other teams' tendencies, and even like almost specific to the player tendencies. Like the opposing player's tendencies. After 11 games of playing them, a certain guy comes down the wall and it's like, okay, I know he's probably going to do this. But on the flip side of that, they also know your tendencies. So
That's what I was going to say.
tactically, yeah. So tactically, that's the good, the bad. But yeah, playing the same team 11 times in one season is kind of wild. I think we did that in junior. I want to say we played Sioux Falls one year like 12 or 13 times, but 11 times in one season plus playoffs. So like we play Edmonton. I think we played them 10 times in the regular season plus another 4 times in the playoffs, and same thing with Montreal. 11 times in the regular season plus another 4 games in the playoffs.
Well, I wish you could have played Edmonton like deeper,
Yeah.
deeper in there because you had their number all
I
year.
know. But it was a grind, like going to the same cities, seeing the same teams, and only playing 6 other teams the entire year versus, playing 30 other teams the entire year.
Yeah, crazy.
Wild.
And now this year you get to go to Washington. Well, we certainly hoping that they open everything
Right.
up, and right now it's looking like they're going to open it up and it's back to normal, and which is got to be really nice for you guys to be able to do that and go to some of your favorite rinks again. So
Certainly.
I got some questions for you.
Yep.
So we hear about what the grind is and stuff. Now what I want to do is my first question on the list. You already did. I said, what do you do to occupy? Oh, you didn't answer it. I guess I haven't asked it yet. But what do you do to occupy your time since you don't sleep? I was hoping you'd say you slept.
No, a little bit, I guess. I try to sleep sometimes, but I just, for whatever reason, I can't. Anyways, there's a group of us on the plane, probably 5-6 of us, that play Nintendo Switch. Sounds childish, but it's true. Like, we play Nintendo Switch Mario Kart or Super Smash Bros. For a couple hours straight. It's great.
Takes up time.
Oh, it takes up time. I mean, it's like that's the only time we ever play it is on the plane, but it's funny because we start yelling at each other over some stupid Mario Kart game. It's pretty fun.
Thinking something different.
Yeah.
All right. Do you go out touring when you're in other cities?
Yeah, so sometimes, like the mock road trip I kind of gave was more of a condensed road trip. Sometimes we'll have 3 games in, let's say, 7 nights, and we'll have 2 days off in a city. So sometimes we'll go touring a little bit.
Favorite city so far in your travels in the NHL?
Personally, my favorite city is Nashville. I love going to Nashville.
Why?
Just is it Broad Street or Broadway, whatever that is. They have all those country music bars, and that's kind of my scene. Like I'd rather be in that scene versus like a big monster city. Like it's almost like it feels like a small town kind of. It obviously is a big city, but Nashville kind of has that small town feel.
Sure. Favorite opposing rink?
It's always a toss up for me between Vegas and Montreal. Obviously, when Montreal's fans, but those are my two favorite.
Why?
Atmosphere. So Vegas is just totally insane, and
Been there.
it's wild. Like
we named it. We actually named what it is. It's called the Hockey Circus.
it's crazy. It's nuts.
I mean, the people there. I was there actually a couple different years in a row for at trade shows down there. In fact, we were hoping that you guys were going to be there, and you were there the week before. It was horrible.
Of course.
So anyway, and literally, I bought a whole row.
Really.
I brought a whole bunch of customers and stuff. It was really fun. But they're like, and everyone was hockey fans. They're like, this is weird because the people there didn't understand fully the game, so they cheer for everything.
So they love it.
And they just freak
crazy.
out over everything. And then there's stuff going on in the stands at all times. I mean, I'm sure you guys aren't caught staring up
Right.
at the stands the whole game. But every single break in the game, every time they come out and clean the ice, every time that there's a penalty, whatever, and there's a little bit of a break, there's something going on up there. They're banging on these drums and they're going crazy up there. And so we just named it the Hockey Circus.
Well, it literally is because, like, my dad being the traditional hockey fan that he is, went to a game in Vegas, and I see him after the game, and he's like, "That was ridiculous. I hated it." I was like, "What do you mean? That was awesome for me to play in. Like, it was great atmosphere." But he's like, "I couldn't hear myself. Like, it's nuts."
You're right. You're right. And I'm a big hockey fan. I'm probably not as deep as your dad is. But what I did, because I had customers with me, is I took the other tactic. And actually, none of them were like my favorite teams, playing that night. We just went because it was going to be a great night out and stuff. And so I did take in some of that, and it made it pretty fun. But I can see how it'd be a little bothersome as a hockey fan who really knows the game well, understands what's going on, understands that you guys just don't shoot and chase a puck around, that these are all set plays and all this stuff, and watching what's happening from up high and doing that. But I can see why your dad,
For sure.
would get a little bit irritated when he's like, I'm trying to watch my son play hockey here, people.
Yeah, exactly. He's trying to watch a play develop, not watch the circus. But
Yeah.
And then Montreal's kind of almost like the opposite, not the opposite atmosphere, but it's a different feel. Like it's one of the most historic buildings in the league. Like they have all those retired numbers, and they're such a historic franchise. And then on top of that, their seats are super vertical, so it almost feels like the fans are on top of you. They're super passionate. Like I said, that's a great place to play.
Yeah, they are so passionate.
Yeah.
All right. The best ice, not rink ice.
Yeah, that's a tough one. When I was playing in New York, I always said Winnipeg. I only played there a couple of times, but every time I got on, I was like, wow, this is great ice.
And not everyone's going to know what we're talking about. I mean,
Right.
you were talking about fast ice. It doesn't get all
Get
slushed
chipped
up
or
and
slushed
chipped up. Yeah.
I would say in perfect conditions, when the weather's not hot outside, I would say either Montreal or Edmonton. Obviously, like when we played in Edmonton in the bubble for that playoff tournament, it was the middle of July, so it was 95 degrees outside. And there was a bunch of teams playing on it, but during a regular season and kind of in the middle of winter, I'd say those two have the best ice.
So I'm sitting here. I'm a defenseman for the Winnipeg Jets. And all of a sudden I look up and Connor McDavid's coming down on me with the puck. Is it like, oh, bleep?
Yep.
Or
exactly.
so you actually have a chance to think about that?
Well, not really, because he's so fast.
If you think about it, he'll probably be behind you.
You kind of got to get lucky to stop him. Like, you just hope he doesn't score on that chance, because he's probably going to get a chance to score against you, and you're just hoping he doesn't score.
How can a guy that size go from 0 to 100% wide open in 2 strides?
I'm still trying to figure it out. I don't know.
It's absolutely
crazy.
amazing, and I've thought of that because you guys really had their number this last year too. The Jets, you guys just took it to Edmonton like all season, and they got some firepower up front with Draisaitl and with McDavid, and you guys really shut them down.
Well, in playoffs we did, but I think we played them 9 or 10 times this year, and the last 5 games, literally the last 5 games, they beat us in all 5 games. So they beat us 5 times in a row. And then we went into playoffs and we drew Edmonton. I was like, oh boy, we literally haven't beat these guys in 5 games.
But I had looked at some data. And I
I
thought
think
you guys had done really good earlier than in the beginning of the season.
well, I think you might be getting them and Montreal confused because we did good against Montreal in the regular season.
Maybe that was it.
And then Edmonton, I think our record against Edmonton in the regular season was like 3-5 or 3-6, and
Okay.
we lost 5 straight, like literally the last 5 games.
Well, you did a lot of good film work going into the playoffs.
Yeah,
Then.
apparently.
Holy cow! So pregame meal.
I do. I'm not super picky. Like if it gets messed up, it's not a huge deal. But usually I'll do like um, a salad before, like a Caesar salad, and then I'll do like a penne pasta with a mix of Alfredo sauce, red sauce, and then usually peas and peppers and mushrooms and stuff like that.
And you can do this on all the different. Is this home only, or can you do this on the road as well?
Both.
Okay.
I get really sick of pasta by the end of the year.
I
so
bet.
so some games I actually do switch it up because it gets really old. I'd say like halfway through the year it gets pretty old,
But these are some rituals, which is
Well,
one of my
right,
next thing
right.
is what are some of Neal's pregame rituals?
I usually try to nap, so I'll do the pregame meal and then I'll go out for a nap. Again, not super picky about if I do get my nap or don't get my nap. Sometimes it's depends how tired I am. Like sometimes it's over an hour, sometimes it's 30 minutes. A couple times this year I didn't nap just because I couldn't. It was no big deal, but I try to nap and then have a coffee after the nap and go to the rink.
Well, you know what? It's interesting because when they show you guys come into the rink, now you're all suited up.
Yeah, we all have coffees in our hands.
Everyone has wearing a beanie.
Oh yeah, we're
and
all
a
wearing
coffee.
easy. Yeah, you got the easy travel clothes on and you have a coffee in your hand.
Yep. Favorite movie?
Oof. I like the classics, and one of my favorite movies, me and my brothers, Tommy Boy. So I'll go with that one. I got to, yeah. There's probably about 3 of them, but Tommy Boy it's just a classic. I still laugh at it to this day. I don't know why, but
Watch it a million times and keep laughing.
For
Well,
some
you're playing
reason
a lot of
it's-
golf now. Caddyshack, got to bring that one
Yeah,
back
that's
up.
that's up there, but Tommy Boy is just it's a classic.
And growing up, who was your favorite NHL player?
That's a good one. I was a Wild fan for sure, but if they got knocked out of the playoffs or when they did, I always cheered for Detroit after that. So like a guy like Nick Lindstrom was one of my favorite players.
He was
He was so
awesome.
good.
I mean, he just as a D too. I mean,
Yeah.
come on.
Along with him and like Datsuk, right? Like they had those stars and Zetterberg, like they had the stars on the team. Those are some of my favorite players growing up.
you know, I'm waiting someday for you to somebody get a snapshot of you doing the Bobby Orr. Huh?
Yeah.
You got the right
Yeah.
number.
Yeah. Yeah.
So tell us
Someday.
a little bit about that. We're getting close to the end here. Tell everybody about numbering. So your first contract, you're in New York, you're number 44. You get traded to Winnipeg Jets, you're number 4. Do you get any choice in this numbering gig, or do they just say, "Here's your jersey, welcome to the team"?
Yeah, not your rookie year.
Okay.
I took whatever jersey. I'm just glad they gave me a jersey.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. Thank you, sir. May have
Yeah,
another.
yes, absolutely. So yeah, in New York I wore 44, and again I'm not super picky on numbers. I think youth hockey I wore 9, sophomore year I wore 19, junior year went back to 19, and then 9 was
Yes,
taken.
you did.
9 was taken in junior, or in the USHL, so I took 5. And then when I got to college, 5 was taken, so I took 4. And then when I got to New York, in Hartford I wore 4, and then in New York I wore 44. And then when I got traded to Winnipeg, Josh Morrissey wears 44. So
Correct.
I was just like, all right, I'll go back to 4.
How is Josh Morrissey to play with, being that you guys you play the game a lot alike?
Yeah.
And he's a left-hander, you're a right-hander, and a couple times toward the end of the year, you guys will get paired together.
Yeah, he's a really good player. The most his best skills is hockey IQ. I mean, he sees plays coming, 2-3 steps before anybody else does.
I think
I
think you do too.
I like watching him on the ice because, like I said, I learned from him, and when he makes a good play, everybody appreciates, especially the defensemen appreciate it. But yeah, he's a heck of a player.
Awesome. So, folks, we're getting to the end of it here. One thing that, and at some point, we're going to have you back when you bring the cup.
Yeah,
All right.
exactly.
Okay.
Perfect.
All right. We're going to hold you to that. We got them on tape now, folks. Is next time we talk, what I will want to talk about is a little bit of the old rink ratting, which you grew up in a community that's known all over the state of hockey to have the best outdoor ice there is. They have dedicated outdoor Zambonis. They now have 6 rinks outside that are ZAMmed many times a day. I'd really like to get into that with you, because I think that in development of any young players or any young kids, just get out there and rink rat and have fun. And in our community up there, literally tons of kids who never played organized hockey still play with all their buddies, and who do play organized hockey on the outdoor rinks, and how important that is to development and having fun and keeping parents away from it and letting kids have fun. So, Neal, we appreciate you coming here, especially on such just monumental day for you in your life and in your career, signing a wonderful contract. We're very proud of you. Congratulations. And folks, this is Neal Pionk. You need to become a Winnipeg Jets fan. You need to cheer and buy a jersey with number 4 on it. They can go online and see those. Neal, thank you. We appreciate it greatly. And folks, until next time, unplug from the indoors and recharge in the outdoors.